Welcome back to the Avatar series right here at Comicstorian, where we give you your favorite trade paperbacks in dramatic audio form. I'm Dan, your narrator for this series, and today we are going to start with part 2 of The Search. Beneath a tree, Azula lies sleeping. A hand reaches down, gently stroking her hair, and she snaps awake, startled to find her mother leaning over her. "How did you get the jump on me?" she demands in anger. Concern fills Ursa's eyes as she looks down at her daughter. "Give up this futile quest, my daughter. Go home. The throne is Zuko's destiny. Yours lies elsewhere," she tells her. Azula struggles to her feet, smiling wickedly at her mother, promising her a swift doom when they reach her. But Ursa still looks at her sadly, asking her daughter to remove her mask of fear and intimidation and embrace her destiny. "No! Why must you fill my mind with such lies? The throne is my destiny!" Azula shouts angrily, about to blast her mother with electricity. But confusion suddenly fills her face and the attack wavers. Isn't it? I have proof," she gasps. She reaches out for her mother, but her angry hand wraps around Katara's wrist instead. Sokka lashes out with his boomerang, trying to protect his sister, but Azula easily blocks it. The attack seems to take her out of her stupor, though, and she stares around, confused. She reaches down to her boot, discovering that her letter is missing. She turns on the others, angry once again. "Where is Zuko?" she demands. A short distance away, Zuko and Aang sit on a cliff, with Aang reading the letter that Zuko found. "I can't believe it," he whispers. Zuko nods, telling Aang that the truth makes so much sense, why Ozai could treat him so poorly. "I'm not his son." But Aang isn't convinced, not sure why Ozai wouldn't just get rid of Zuko permanently. "I don't know about all this, Zuko. It can't be true, or at least it shouldn't be," Aang tells his friend. But Zuko doesn't agree, believing that this provides his future with hope. "But if you're not Ozai's son, what does that mean for your reign? Who is the rightful Firelord?" Aang asks. "There you are!" Azula shouts from behind them, the usual deranged look in her eye, as energy begins to crackle in her hands. "She told you to take that letter out of my boot, didn't she?" she demands. She drops into a combat stance, launching an attack at her brother. "Give it back! I'm not letting her win!" she shouts. In the distant past, Ursa walks with her son and daughter through the palace gardens. Azula suddenly turns and burning one of the flowers, and Zuko yells for his mother, who comes over and puts out the fire quickly. "You will treat the royal gardens with respect," Ursa tells her daughter, but Azula seems less than sorry. "What? It deserved it. It wasn't as pretty as the others," she whispers. She reaches out, snapping fire at Zuko's behind. "Tattletale," she hisses. Anger fills Ursa's voice as she orders her daughter to go to her room. Ursa reaches down, trying to console a saddened Zuko, as Ozai watches on. He turns away from them, moving through the palace until he reaches his meeting with Vashir of the Yuyan archers. Ozai has a mission for this exceptional archer. In a small village called Hira, on the far edge of the Fire Nation, there lives a man named Ikem. Find him and rid the world of him, Ozai orders. Vashir nods, bowing to the Firelord and promising that it will be done. Back in the present, both Zuko and Aang do their best to ward off Azula's attacks. Zuko tells his friend to go find Sokka and Katara. "I can handle Azula," he tells him. "Give it back! Give it back!" Azula keeps screaming, launching another attack. Zuko dodges, lashing fire at her with a leg sweep, but she leaps on him, snatching the letter from his belt. "You tell her this is my destiny," she hisses, before jumping away. But Zuko is fast, snatching her foot and slamming her against the ground. Anger fills his voice as he lifts her into the air. From the day you were born, you've put me through so much. Why, Azula? Why'd our relationship have to be like this? He shouts at her. Holding her just by her tunic, Zuko dangles Azula over the cliff face. Was this her plan all along? Is she whispering in your ear right now to throw me over the cliff? She asks in her deranged voice. Zuko is stunned, telling his sister that she isn't making any sense. Don't deny it, Zuko. She told you I had the letter in my boot. She told you to wait until I was asleep too, Azula begins. But suddenly, she seems to calm down. Wait a minute. You've had that letter all night. Why didn't you burn it when you had the chance? She asks. Zuko glares at her, finally putting her down, and Azula stares back at him, shocked that he wants to keep the letter. Zuko turns away from her, telling her that they need to finish what they've started. Oh, Zuzu, are you actually on my side? She asks. But Zuko just walks away, telling her to rejoin the group. At the campsite, the others are finishing putting out the fires that Azula started. As Zuko and Azula enter the clearing, the others glare at her. Nature hates you, Sokka huffs at her. Aang looks over at Azula before turning back to Zuko. So, you guys aren't fighting anymore? He asks. Zuko shakes his head. We've arrived at an understanding, he tells his friends. The group begins to climb aboard Appa, while Sokka points out that this is what Zuko has said since they left the palace. And since then, she's tried to kill us like 12 times, Sokka shouts. With everyone aboard, Appa leaps into the air, heading towards the end of their journey. In the past, Prince Ozai and his family sit around the dinner table, while Azula talks about how Master Kunio was correcting her form. I told him that's how you get the biggest fire blast. He didn't care. He wanted me to do the form his way, the dumb way. So when he had his back turned, I set his pants on fire, she cries happily. Ozai nods in approval. Your teacher sounds like a fool. I will send him to the colonies, he tells her. But Zuko speaks up, explaining how Kunio believes that proper firebending starts with proper form. But his words are interrupted as Ozai slams his fist down on the table, startling the family. He glares at his son. Zuko, how dare you lecture your sister on firebending? Despite being a year younger, how many more forms has she mastered than you? He demands. Zuko hangs his head. 14, he whispers sadly. Anger sparks in Ozai's eyes as he stares at his son, explaining that when Zuko was born, they weren't even sure if he was a firebender. I plan to cast you from the palace. How embarrassing for a prince of the Fire Nation to have a non-bender as his firstborn, he shouts. Azula was born lucky. You were lucky to be born. Ursa stands, beginning to shout at her husband. But the anger is interrupted by a guard informing Ozai that a Yuyan archer requests a meeting with him. Without a word, Ozai leaves his family behind, traveling up to one of the towers in the palace. Bashir kneels before the Fire Prince, his uniform tattered and dirty. He explains that the man known as Ikem moved to a forest near Hira and was never seen again. Bashir journeyed into the forest, hoping to find the man, but was unable to. That forest, Your Highness. I've never seen anything like it. The trees, the animals, the insects, they're all out to get you. No commoner could have survived for long, Bashir explains. He bows once more to Ozai, telling the prince that he believes his desires were already fulfilled. But Ozai is not convinced. This is all mere conjecture. You bring me no assurance of his demise, he hisses. The archer apologizes, but Ozai's mood shifts, and he helps the man to his feet. He orders him to return to his elite unit and give his resignation. Bashir is shocked, questioning the prince. The Yuyan archers are an elite fighting force, the best of the best. You no longer belong, Ozai tells him, turning and leaving the man behind. Ozai travels down to his wife's chambers, ordering her handmaidens to leave immediately. He snatches at Ursa's hand, reminding her about how he ordered her to forget her old life. that having any contact with her past is considered treason. "I knew it! I knew you were intercepting my letters! How dare you!" she yells at him. He tells her he knows of her treachery, that he knows of Zuko. "But I am a merciful man. I will allow the child to live, despite the lowliness of his true heritage. Ikem, however, deserved his punishment," he tells her. "What did you do?" she asks, distraught. "I wiped that treacherous dog from existence," he tells her with an evil grin. Back in the present, Appa lands, allowing the group to disembark outside of Hira. Quickly, they disguise themselves as regular citizens of the Fire Nation and enter the town. Walking through, they discover a large crowd gathering in the square. "I thought Hira was supposed to be a small town. Why is it so crowded?" Katara asks. The group walks forward, discovering that the crowd is gathered around a stage, watching a play. "I recognize this scene. It's the final battle from Love Amongst Dragons," Zuko tells them. The two actors portraying the dragons have a mock battle, throwing confetti as they're bending. As the group watches on, Zuko turns to his sister, reminding her of the times their mother used to take them to watch the play when they were younger. The play ends with the two dragons professing their love for one another, bringing cheers and clapping from the crowd. With the play over, the crowd begins to disperse, and Zuko steps up to an elderly couple, asking for information about a woman named Ursa. "Ursa? Wasn't she the magistrate's daughter?" the old man asks. His wife nods her head, beginning to bring up rumors of why she left. But the group is interrupted by a man wearing the blue spirit mask. "Excuse me, my name's Norin. I'm the director of the Hira acting troupe. Ursa was once a member." The man introduces himself, shaking Zuko's hand. He offers them to his home so that they can talk about Ursa away from the crowds. "We'll share some tea and I'll tell you everything I know," Norin tells them. Zuko bows, thanking the man for the honor. The day turns to evening as the group shares tea at Norin's home, introducing themselves to his wife of 5 years. Meanwhile, Azula and Zuko meet Kiyi, the couple's young daughter. Yet Azula is her standard evil self while Zuko befriends the young girl. "Kiyi, are you being hospitable to our guests?" Norin asks as he comes in with Sokka, bringing a tray of tea. "I'm trying," Kiyi tells her father, glancing at Azula. The group sits down, with Norin explaining he would love to share stories with those who claim to be drama historians. Katara glances at her brother, and he smiles. "Great cover story, right? I just opened my mouth and there it was," he whispered to her. Norin explains to them that Ursa is one of the acting troupe's most famous members. Years ago, she was taken away to the capital. Supposedly, she married into the royal family. This all happened before I came to town, but even I've heard the rumors, Norin's wife, Noriko, explains. "What about Ikem?" Zuko asks. Norin pauses for a moment, shocked that Zuko had ever heard of the man. "Ikem was an actor too. Ursa's boyfriend, I believe. He disappeared shortly after Ursa left," Norin explains. "Folks say he ran off into the Forgetful Valley, a forest at the bottom of the canyon, just outside of town. The heartbroken go there to forget their lives," Noriko adds. The woman looks up at the ceiling, thinking on the issue. "You know, I vaguely remember hearing that Ursa came back to town years later looking for Ikem. They say she went after him in the Forgetful Valley," she tells them. But Norin shakes his head. "That can't be true. No one's seen or heard from Ursa since she was taken to the capital," Norin tells his wife. "Well, if it is true, it's awfully romantic," Noriko says. But Norin continues to shake his head. Romantic or tragic? Forgetful Valley is a dark, dangerous place. No one who enters ever returns, he tells his wife. After the tea, the group steps back out into the night air, bowing to their gracious hosts. They move through the village, heading back towards Appa. Ugh, more than once tonight, I was tempted to burn that whole place down. But I resisted for you, Zuzu. I hope you appreciate that, Azula tells her brother. How could you even think about that with such a loving family? Katara asks. But Azula waves her hand dismissively. Oh, please. Their charade disgusted me. Nobody's that happy, she snaps. Catching up to his friend in the dark, Aang apologizes for what he said that morning to Zuko. Yet he believes that Aikum should stay lost to history, and they should burn the letter. I don't have the letter anymore. Azula took it back, Zuko tells Aang. He tells him that they need to find his mother first. Then they can figure out who he is supposed to be. But Aang reaches out, putting his hand on Zuko's shoulder. Listen to me. When people come to your throne room and bow, they're not bowing to you, they're bowing to what you represent. A new era of love and peace. So it doesn't matter who your real dad is, you have to stay Firelord. You're not the Firelord for you, you're the Firelord for all of us, Aang explains. Sokka steps forward, indicating to the two girls fighting behind him, and asks how long they plan to continue to travel. I give it another 2 minutes before something is on fire or encased in ice, Sokka explains. But Zuko nods, a look of determination on his face. One more place to visit and we're done. We're going to Forgetful Valley, he explains. In the past, Azula sits on the edge of Zuko's bed, apparently happy by what she just told him. Stop it! You're lying! Dad would never do that to me! Zuko shouts, distressed. Ursa enters the room because of the commotion. Your father would never do what to you? What is going on here? She asks her children. Azula looks up at her mother, innocence on her face. I don't know, she tells as Ursa takes her arm and leads her out of the room, telling her daughter that they need to talk. In the hallway, Azula admits that she overheard their grandfather and father speaking in the throne room. She heard her father ask for Uncle Iroh's birthright, and their grandfather got very mad. Now for punishment, Daddy has to get rid of Zuko. Grandfather wants him to know the pain of losing a firstborn, she tells her mother. Ursa turns away from her daughter, ordering her to go to bed. Moving through the halls, Ursa doesn't see the evil smile that spreads across her young daughter's lips. Ozai, you can't do this! Ursa cries as she enters her husband's chambers. He turns away from the window, regarding her. I have no choice. Refusing the Fire Lord's command is treason. But I am a merciful man. I'm waiting till he's asleep. He won't feel a thing, Ozai tells her. Ursa looks at the prince for a moment before making up her mind. Listen carefully. I'll make you a deal. I know how to make a poison that is odorless and colorless, completely untraceable. It causes a person to pass quietly, as if he's simply fallen asleep. I'll give you a vial in exchange for Zuko's life. Once the poison is in your hands, you do whatever you wish, she tells her husband. Ozai turns away from her, staring out the window. I accept your plan, on one condition. Once we've made the exchange, you must leave the city and never show your face again. With you around, it is only a matter of time before a colorless, odorless poison is used against the new Fire Lord, he tells her. Ursa agrees, but demands to take her children with her. But Ozai shakes his head, telling her that if she keeps her word, no harm will come to them. But should you try to stay or take your children, I will hunt you down like I did your boyfriend, he warns. That very night, Ursa creates the poison as her mother showed her years ago. She hands it to Ozai and without a word, leaves him in the night. She stops in Azula's room, kissing her daughter gently on the cheek. And then when she goes to see Zuko and leans down to kiss him on the cheek, the young boy awakens, calling for her. She pulls him close, hugging her son. Zuko, my love, listen to me. Everything I've done to protect you, she whispers. Remember this, Zuko. No matter how things seem to change, never forget who you are, she tells him. In the present, the group bid farewell to Appa, walking the last few feet into the Forgetful Valley. The sun seems to disappear as the trees crowd the sky overhead, casting the earth into a gloomy twilight. Sokka stops, staring up at the strange face that looks at them from within a large boulder, seemingly warning and inviting at the same time. So this must be Forgetful Valley, Aang notes, stepping up next to his friend. How do you know? Are you detecting something with your special avatar powers? Sokka asks. But Aang shakes his head, pointing to the sign next to him. No, it says so on the sign. They continue forward, but there doesn't seem to be a path, and they aren't sure where to go exactly. Come on, Zuzu. For a true firebender, there's always a path, Azula shouts, blasting a hole through the forest, setting many plants on fire. Nature hates you! Sokka shouts as the others work to put out the flames. Suddenly, Aang turns away, clutching at his face. Quiet, guys. I'm sensing something with my special avatar powers. It's kinda making me want to go like this, he tells them, turning to show the weird face he is making. Sweetie, not with the faces again, Katara says, looking at her boyfriend. But Sokka waves his hand, telling his sister that he thinks Aang is onto something. He reaches out, showing them that there are strange faces on plants and animals all around them. He points out that the face Aang is making is the same pattern on that giant flutter bat that is flying away. Aang agrees and starts to chase after the critter. Don't fly away, Mr. Flutterbat! I think we're meant to be friends! Aang yells as Zuko tries to call for him not to run off. But Aang doesn't listen, chasing the Flutterbat through the woods until it leads him to an incredibly still pool of water. Whoa! Aang whispers, looking at the mirror-like water. The others catch up to him, also shocked by the stillness of the pool. I've never seen water so clear and still, Katara tells them. It's like a perfect pane of glass, Zuko agrees. Aang nods, looking at the others, telling them to be respectful. This is a spiritual place, he tells them. Azula looks down at the still waters, once again seeing her mother's reflection in it. You're going the wrong way, Azula. Turn back and find your true destiny, Ursa whispers to her daughter. But anger fills Azula again as she screams for her mother to shut up, blasting the water with electricity. Aang begins to yell at her, but Azula launches another attack at him as well. She told you to lead me here, didn't she? So she could keep tormenting me with her lies, she screams. As Zuko yells for Azula to stop, Katara agrees, pulling the water from the pool to launch an attack. We've tried to put up with her, but she's too dangerous, Katara tells her friend. Suddenly, twin flowery throwing stars sail out of the woods, cutting across Katara and Azula's arms and embedding themselves into the tree behind Aang. These are the prettiest throwing stars I've ever seen, Aang exclaims, admiring the weapons. More of the stars launch out and everyone defends themselves. Katara sees one shatter on Sokka's club, finally understanding, realizing that someone is bending the water in the flowers to make them more rigid. But suddenly, the vines from above attack them as well, and Sokka manages to save Aang from being attacked, and then is shocked when Azula saves him. The more peasants I have fighting for me, the better chance I have of surviving this nightmare forest, she explains. The vines keep attacking, and finally, Katara begins to bend the water in them as well, twisting them away so that they are harmless. Whoever you are, you're not the only one who can water bend. Show yourself, she orders. Everyone is shocked when two members of the Water Tribe step out of the woods and into the clearing. In the past, Ursa walks through Hira village in the dark. She returns to her old home, knocking on the front door to be greeted by a young girl. Forgive me for disturbing you. I am looking for Magistrate Jinzuk and his wife, Rena, she explains, lowering her hood. But the little girl lets her know that they both passed away. Later, Ursa finds herself at the theater stage, alone and sad. If you're looking for a role in this year's production, I have bad news for you. Tryouts ended weeks ago, a voice calls to her. But she stands, tears in her eyes, letting the man know that she was just visiting some old memories. Norin introduces himself to Ursa, telling her that he took over the acting troupe some years ago. He holds out his hand, telling her that sitting alone on a stage is no way to start the day, and offers her breakfast. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Ursa smiles at him. In the present, the group sits around a fire, sharing their meal with the water tribesmen. The elderly woman Misu apologizes. My brother and I just aren't used to seeing other humans around here. When we heard the commotion, we thought a forest animal was disturbing the pool. It must remain undisturbed, she tells them. Aang agrees, and the woman informs him that there are 3 other pools like it throughout the forest. So how did 2 people from the Northern Water Tribe end up in the Fire Nation? Katara asks. Misu looks at her, explaining that growing up, her brother liked to break the rules. He used to steal things from other members of the tribe, but he would always return them, and the people he would steal from would be so embarrassed that he would never get into any trouble. But one day, his luck ran out. I found him alone on the ice, his face horribly disfigured. It changed his life, our lives, forever, she tells them. Misu made it her life's mission to save her brother and learned of an ancient spirit that lived in these woods that had the power to give people new faces. And the 2 tried desperately to get here. After many failed attempts, we finally made it to Forgetful Valley, and we've lived here ever since, hoping to encounter the spirit, Misu tells them. So you've spent your whole life trying to heal your brother? Aang asks, and Misu nods. Of course, I'm his sister, she says simply. Katara and Sokka smile at each other, but Azula and Zuko merely turn away. Azula rudely interrupts the story, demanding to know if the siblings had seen their mother, but Misu shakes her head, telling them that they haven't seen anyone in quite some time. Aang interrupts, asking what the Great Spirit looks like, but Misu doesn't know, just that the forest tells them when she is arriving. Face-like patterns begin to manifest on the trees, the wings of the insects, and the backs of the animals. Then, on a night like tonight, a giant wolf bearing the mark of a face travels from far away to drink from one of the forest's 4 pools. Whichever pool he drinks from, there the spirit appears. But we never seem to be in the right pool, Misu explains to them. She sighs, looking at her brother and telling him that they once again missed the Great Spirit. But Aang disagrees, believing that there is something that he can do, and goes to sit by the side of the pool. I'm going to try and cross over into the spirit world and try to get that giant wolf spirit to come here, he tells them. But Azula becomes angry, stomping off into the woods as Zuko follows her. Did we travel all this way to help a couple dirty vagrants, or to find our mother? She demands. But Zuko explains that Aang is the Avatar, and he helps people, and they're friends, so they help him. Suddenly, a deranged look appears on Azula's face once more. Wait! Did she arrange all this? She asks, beginning to shout up into the lonely trees. I'm getting close, aren't I, Mother? Is that why you sent those 2 vagrants? To slow me down? She demands no one. She rushes back into the clearing, preparing to attack Misu and Rafa, shouting to her mother that her plan isn't going to work. Zuko jumps in front of the attack, redirecting the lightning and shouting for his sister to stop. Meanwhile, Aang has entered the spirit realm, looking up to see the Flutterbat hanging over his head. Mr. Flutterbat, I knew we were meant to be friends, he shouts joyfully, and the spirit spreads its wings. Come with me, I will show you what you want to see, it tells him. Aang rides on the Great Spirit's back, high above the treetops of Forgetful Valley. He looks down, seeing the 4 pools far below, and the great wolf running along. Aang leaps down, trying to convince the wolf spirit that he is a friend, but the spirit doesn't look at him, bending down to take a drink from one of the pools. Hey, don't drink from here. There's a pool over there that tastes way better, Aang tells the spirit, but the wolf regards him coldly. Turning away, it moves to gallop off into the forest again, and Aang leaps onto its back. He holds on as the wolf moves at great speed. Finally, Aang opens his eyes to find that they've arrived at another pool. Who dares ride my wolf as if she were some common beast of burden? A voice calls to him. Aang looks up at the brightness above him. My name is Aang. I'm the Avatar. Who are you? He asks. The Great Spirit stands over him, faces floating all around her. I am the Mother of Faces. And that is the end of The Search Part 2. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like, leave a comment down below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and click that little bell to get those notifications when we bring you the next and final part of The Search. If you want to find more of me, I am Dan T Producer on Twitter and Instagram, and Silu91 on Twitch, CYLOO91. And if you want to support Comicstorian, you can support us over on our Patreon at patreon.com/Comicstorian, where for $2 you get access to all of our podcasts, early access content, and there's a lot of great other stuff available over there. Thank you guys so much for listening today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.